Welcome to Real Estate Success DFW, the podcast where top producing agents from Dallas-Fort Worth come together to share their stories and strategies behind their success. I'm Shaune, Corbett, your host, and with over 300 million sold in the local real estate market and the honor of being best of B multiple times, I know what it takes to make it in this market. Each episode, we're going to dive into the world of real estate, learning from the very best in the industry. If you're ready to level up your game, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Shaune Corbett with Real Estate Success DFW. I've got a special guest today. His name's Matt Solis. How are you, Matt?
Good. How are you?
Good, very good. So I wanted to bring Matt on. We actually got connected through Tyler Hodgson, and Tyler is killing it in lending, and he's been cheerleader for my podcast and growing it. And he introduced me to Matt as an opportunity to see how we could kind of work together. So I looked up Matt, I looked up his performance, how he's done, and I've looked up his Instagram and some of the spaces there. And he's got a really solid audience, and he's selling a lot of houses in a very short amount of time. How long have you been doing real estate?
I got my license September of 2022. So just over 2 years now.
Okay, that really fast. Most agents can't sell what he's selling in a year, 10, 15 years into the business. So Matt has got a niche, he's got an opportunity, and he is living the niche. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what his audience and some of the clients that he works with. But mainly I wanted to emphasize, though, he's best in D, which is a really hard thing to hit. Best in D is your top agents in the Dallas-Fort Worth space, which is where most of our audience is. And that means you're selling a certain production per year, and only the absolute top agents show up on that. He's certainly on the top 500 with Real Producers, another magazine production space that really helps promote successful agents, and they can only promote successful agents. So it takes a certain space to be able to even qualify to be considered for those. So those are really good starting points for someone very new to the business. So I'm very impressed. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for you guys to learn from Matt. Matt's got some great insights in specific spaces that I'm not in. So it's going to be really cool to kind of collaborate in that space. What got you into real estate?
Well, I started my journey in real estate in 2021, purchasing my first home. At the time, I was a music teacher. I went to school for music, went to UNT up in Denton. And then I was a teacher and a performer. I did wedding band gigs on the weekends and stuff. And I just didn't really see that going anywhere. I didn't see a career or a future in that long term. So during COVID was when I had the chance to really realize that and think about it. Started going to YouTube videos and, discovered house hacking, right? And I was like, okay, I'm renting right now. Why not just buy my house? I've got some money saved up and I can rent out the rooms, live for free, and then maybe later on down the road buy another one. So the original plan was to buy my way into financial freedom through house hacking. So I bought my first house 2021, and it was a great success. It was a 4-bedroom. I lived in the master and rented out the other 3 rooms, and I lived for free. So I got rid of my rent. And then the second year, 2022, I did it again. So I took those lease agreements to Tyler Hodgson, the guy you were just talking about, and we got my mortgage offset by the rental income coming in so I could free up my DTI for the next house, and bought that second house. And this time I bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, but I added 2 bedrooms and I added a bath to make it a 6-3. Just ramped it up a little bit. So I lived in the master, rented out the other 5 rooms, rinse and repeat. So now I'm cash flowing from the first house because I got that room that I was living in rented out. And I've got the 5 bedrooms rented out in my new house in Arlington. So it was going well, right? But I realized how slow it was. I was like, okay, I'm playing this perfectly. I've got, at the time I probably had maybe $1,000 or $1,200 of cash flow from those 2 houses after all expenses paid. So I'm living rent free and I got $1,200 of cash flow. But I can't retire off that. And at the pace I'm going, I need to do 10 of these to really see a difference. So I was like, you know what? Let's just get my license and let's see how it goes. Maybe I can, kill it, crush it as a realtor and get out of teaching sooner. Because to me, the main motivation, I was like, I want my time back. I want to get out of teaching lessons and gigging and all that. So got my license 2022 and I was a full-time like teacher, performer, musician, and a realtor at the same time for the beginning of my career. And by like March of 2023, so probably like, like 6 months or so after I got my license, I had made more money than I did as an entire year of being a teacher. So I was like, okay, for sure I'm retiring from my teaching job in May. So I finished up the school year and just went full time in real estate. And I finished 2023, my first year, with 10 million in sales. And that's how I got that D Magazine award. And I really credit that to probably two or three things. So the first thing was I had an incredible mentor. His name is Rob Stein. He's the head coach at Epic Realty, where I'm at. And he taught me everything I need to know. And the main thing he taught me was the importance of hosting open houses and how to host them and what to do. So when I first got my license, I hosted open houses every Saturday and every Sunday. So I had no days off. Teach 5 days a week, Saturday, Sunday open houses. And they were long. They were like 3 or 4 hours. And I put up signs and I just, I was grinding. And I learned how to talk to people about real estate and how to close for appointments. I made sure to be intentional about asking for what I wanted, which was to meet them for a consultation outside of the open house. So the goal would be to set one consultation per open house, but I probably average maybe a little bit less than that. But on a good day, it'd be like 1, maybe 2 appointments per open house. And over a very short amount of time, I started closing deals. And so that was like the majority of the business. And then I say like another big chunk was the real estate investing space. From my experience in house hacking and from already being in it.
Let's hold on 1 second. So we'll get into investing in just a second. I want to finish on the open house. So
Sure.
So Rob Stein taught you about hosting open houses. I know we had a guy in our organization, and he was like this mega open house guy. He's like, if you want to work full-time in real estate, 2 hours a weekend is not full-time. He would host like 8-hour open houses. Now I understand you were working, you had other things, but he would do 8-hour open houses and he would massively publicize them. And he'd put out 100 open house signs and he turned it into an event. And when he had an event, he was guaranteed he was going to get, at least 4 or 5 real opportunities from each day that he opened. He did, and you don't got to do it forever, right? I mean, I always advise, I think open house is a great way to build an initial book of business and opportunity. It's like Zillow leads, but you meet in person. So you might have...
Yeah, it's way better than Zillow leads for sure.
Well, and the reason is because you're meeting them. Right? You can engage them. Yeah.
The problem is it's not scalable, right? So unless, of course, you build a team and then your agents are hosting an open house. But for you, like a solo agent, it's not scalable, but it's a great start.
It's a great walk-in, right? So to build a book of opportunities, right, it gives you that chance to do that. And at that point, you can now, the goal is to build so many buyers that you can't do open houses. That's really kind of where you want to get to. But you mentioned he had a few tips for you. One was, the biggest one you took from was to book an appointment outside of the open house. And I think that's great advice.
So like when you're at the open house, first of all, I want to mention that like not every open house you're going to have success. And I see so many agents that are like I meet them at a networking event and I tell them like my story about open houses and they get pumped up. They start hosting a couple open houses and they're like texting me. And then I reach back out like a month later and they're like, that didn't work. It's like, you got to give it at least 6 months. Like you got to do it consistently.
Yeah.
And one day you're going to get like, there was probably an open house, I think when I first started where I ended up meeting 2 potential, what would have been in the future, 2 clients that ended up closing at the same open house. So that was like a $15,000 open house, like if you think about it like that, and you think about the hourly rate that you're going to get over time, you got to do it consistently.
Yeah, I did an open house one time. I got 8 transactions out of it, and I'm not minimizing.
Wow.
Because I had 3 of them were doubles, and 1 was a single. And they still today, and I don't have a relationship with them. I sold them a house. Mm-hmm. They still are on my back office system checking their values of the house that I sold them. And I only sold them 1 home, and I met them at an open house 1 time. If you can do it, now, it's not going to happen every time. That house, I could have worked the next weekend and nobody showed up. But you got to work it. You got to be in front of it, and you got to make it a part of your business. I love
stay consistent.
That you mentioned that.
Yeah, got to stay consistent, and you got to put up signs. Now, when I first started, I was putting up all my signs, but I've since built a system using my VAs, and we can get into that later, but
Sure.
my VAs find me a sign guy, and we put out like 40 to 50 signs every single time, and all I have to do is pay money to get it done. So I trade my money for time, and now I can, be able to have a ton of traction in the open house without having to like be in the blistering summer heat, putting up signs. So
how do you find a sign guy?
You can go to any online like Tasker, Gigger website, Thumbtack, TaskRabbit, you go to Craigslist, and you just got to like find your people and then like keep using the same guys. And once you get your team together, it's just like a routine. So
what is it to put out? I don't know. What'd you put out, like 20, 30 signs?
I think like the lowest you can get away with is like $50 for the whole gig. So like putting out 30, 40, 50 signs and then taking them back out at the end of the open house and putting them back in your car or wherever you want them to put them.
Yeah.
All of that is like $50 at a minimum. Good. A lot of people.
That's a very good deal.
Oh yeah. Like I'll trade $50 for like, let's say 5 new leads that open house, because I always ask like, hey, what brought you in the open house? Did you see the signs or did you see it online? And I'm like, I would say like 30, 40% of them say I came in because of the signs. So
I asked them as an icebreaker. I said, how did you find the nicest home in the neighborhood? Right. So I have an icebreaker, but you can turn that into finding out, to qualify, is the signs working? But not, that's fantastic, man. You've got some really good stuff that we could even dive into, but I got to keep us moving. We'll get into
for sure.
Any last things that you want to share about open house?
I mean, so the open house generally, like you said, you do icebreakers. They walk in the house. Like I'll just briefly go over my routine, right? So they walk in the house and I just ask them some very basic questions just to get to know them a little bit. I don't want to like hold them there for like 10 minutes. I just want to like, hey, where are you coming from?
Take their temperature.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, make them sign in. Now, some of the guys, they don't want to sign in, and I get it, but if I'm taking the time to host the open house, I am going to push for them to go ahead and sign in for me. I use an iPad, so it links with my CRM. And
you can use the old statement, the seller requires whoever shows up in their house that I can identify who they are.
Yeah, you can say that. There's, 10 different ways you can go about it, but the only question I ask on the form other than their contact info is, are you working with an agent? And that's important because if there are like 5 people in my open house at the same time, I'm checking my phone and I'm like, okay, Susie doesn't have an agent. Everyone else has an agent. I'm going to make sure that before Susie leaves, I talk to her, because sometimes you have to make a decision. Who are you going to talk to? You can only talk to one person at a time. So I make sure that I am talking to the person that doesn't have an agent. So that's how I do it.
I love this, Matt. I love this. I honestly, when people say they have an agent, I always assume they're lying, so I never ask.
Yeah, for sure. You shouldn't give up if they do. I've had it to be where they have an agent and then it turns out it works.
Who shows up to an open house and actually has a signed agreement? I'm telling you, 90% of them don't. Yeah. So I always assume they're lying, and it doesn't matter if they do or not, because I'm going to be better than anyone they talk to.
Right.
So I always add so much value in my conversation. I never even concerned about that. Keep going.
So icebreaker questions. And then I say, okay, like you can look around. I promise I won't follow you around, because some of them are like, they're good. They just want to like look at it. My personality is like, I go with the flow. I will like go at their pace. I'm not a big salesy guy. I'm not going to like push them too hard. So, and I recommend to other agents too, like just be yourself, like figure out who you are and then like go with that, be the most genuine person, like version of yourself that you can be. And that will resonate way more with someone than if you try to like use a script or something. I do have a script that I use, but I've learned to just make it my own and say it in a different way, because so after they look at the house, I get to know what they like about the house and what their criteria is, kind of build a buy box in my head. And then if they're not working with an agent, I will attempt to, ask them to set an appointment with me outside of the open house. And I'm not going to go over the script right now, but basically I give them a reason why it would be good for them to do that. And then I close for the appointment. And the important thing is that you ask. So many agents, I would imagine, they get scared or they don't want to do it. They're like, okay, let me know if you're interested. Like, you got to ask while they're there, because the chances of them meeting with you for a coffee outside of the open house, if you don't set it right there, is very low.
Yeah, you're at the height of the opportunity. You got a short window. You're going to be probably got a 3 or a 4 with them. You're going to be a 10, but at least you have a shot at that point. And if they're motivated enough to do something, they're going to set the appointment. If they set the appointment, your close rate is going to be really solid. because no
Yep.
one else is going to do that.
Yeah.
That's all
And
good,
a
really good.
quick shout out plug in to Rob Stein, his course, Earth to Orbit. He teaches the entire framework there. And that's where I learned everything that I just explained from. So he goes obviously into way more detail, has video examples. That's where I learned everything. So if you're looking for like a framework like that, check out Earth to Orbit. It was really helpful as a new agent, especially.
I love it. And this is really on building your opportunity, your bucket of leads through open houses is one of the components of what he's talking about. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. So he has like a whole module on on open houses and goes over the entire framework. He's got scripts, videos, tips and tricks. So, yep, Earth to Orbit is what it's called. In case you didn't
I'm a
catch
big
it.
fan of open houses. The only other thing that I would say is I don't come with a lot of information. My goal is to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually don't do a sign in. I do a lot of things different.
Mm.
My goal is I'm going to kind of go through if they're warm to me and they're sharing things. Well, we need this, we need this, we need to be in this school, we need 4 bedrooms. I said, if it's all right with you, I'd like to text you the things you're looking for back to you to make sure I've got it right.
Mm.
If I can
That's
get
awesome.
a text from there, no amount of sign in is going to beat that because they just gave me permission to communicate with them.
That's awesome.
And when that's the reason why I close a lot of people when I do open houses. If they can't do that with me, they're not really buying. And I don't care if they have an agent. I don't care if they're pre-qualified because at one point they will be. They're looking at a house in a price range that tells me they will get pre-qualified. And when they're ready to buy, I'm going to be the first person they think about because I add them into my touch system. So that's
nice.
really, you just really got to know where you're going with this, right? You got to have real intention about it. But man, you've got some really good, juicy tidbits to help everyone. That's part of building systems. Okay. That's one of the things that I know you wanted to kind of talk about. Do you want to talk about the investing stuff or do you want to talk about systems?
Let's talk about systems.
Okay. So what does that mean to you?
Well, I hate doing the same thing twice. I hate repeating myself, essentially. Even though I used to be a teacher, I like helping people. I like educating, but when I find myself explaining the same thing over and over again, I'm like, okay, how do I build a process for this? Or maybe not even when it comes to talking to people, maybe it's a task or something. Scheduling a showing, for example. Okay, you got to schedule a showing for a client. You've done this 1,000 times. It's going to take like 10 minutes of your day. If they're doing multiple showings, maybe it's going to be a little bit longer because you got to route everything, right? And so, I started to really become interested in delegating and building a process to where I could have an assistant help me with my business for these repetitive tasks or these things that I was doing over and over again, because I started to see my career and my job as a realtor more like a business and less like a job. And so I hired a virtual assistant back in October of 2023. And I started to build processes around that person. And it started with simple things like basically anytime I caught myself doing a task that maybe I shouldn't be doing this, I would record a video and I would explain myself to the camera, me doing this task, and I would just put it in a library on Loom. And whenever, my assistant was ready for the next task, I was like, hey, go watch that video of how to schedule a showing. Please write a standard operating procedure or an SOP on how to do that task. And the next time we need to do it, let's have you try it. And then we did that. The next time we did it, they did it. And I'm like, whoa, like that was amazing. Like I just bought back like 10 minutes, 20 minutes of my time by just going like, do schedule showing, one button. So yeah, I just became obsessed with that.
So now you send like a list of addresses in your time frame and then they just schedule them for you?
Yeah. So like this morning, my client texted me, he's like, hey, I want to see this address on Friday. And I ping my team in Slack response and they take care of it. That's all I have to do. Eventually, maybe I can have like a tag or something in Follow Up Boss where I give a tag to the client and then that would trigger a task to my team. That would be slightly more efficient, but for now it's pretty good. I just have to do a Slack message. But yeah, like literally, like I would say at least 50% of the day-to-day of being a realtor, I have delegated. And now I can spend more time prospecting and like, checking in on people and just doing higher value activities that, for now only I can do until maybe when I start a team and I can bring on other agents to help, delegate some of the client relationships. But yeah, my team does everything. So
I love this. You're talking my language. I've reached a point where I'm working on my last phase of training. In my last phase of scalability, I'm looking for people that close 6, 7 houses a month. Now, how do you go to 10? To go to 10, you've got to have some scalability elements. VA is a big part of that. Having CTC work and help is a big part of that. Even for me on showings, I mean, I virtually don't ever show houses. So you have an agent.
That's huge. Yeah,
just
showings
takes
is
care
like
of that.
the biggest thing that you could delegate.
Exactly. And that's what there's no change in your Slack. Now add an agent in there and then take off
Right.
from your VA. Now the agent just
Right.
takes over communicating with the client.
Right.
Okay, I'll schedule that. Ideally would be like a 20, 30-year-old veteran agent that isn't really interested in the buy sell and they don't mind driving around showing houses, right? That would
Right.
be so you have kind of a target person.
Yeah.
They're in Slack. Here's the client's information. Call them up, coordinate times. They want to see this type of house. And then my job, I used to call it make the most money per hour. And you're going to resonate with what I'm saying. Showing houses is not going to make me much money per hour, but negotiating contracts, doing listing presentations and doing buying presentations is going to make me the most money per hour.
Yes.
And I don't do any cold lead generation, none. I don't do postcards. I don't do any time. I don't call people that don't know me. I only work with people that know me by first name. It's really part of my business plan. But I've been at this for 20 years, right? So I've got a pretty good network that's built up. But eventually you got to do a lot of the grunt work to start. But I like the idea of building them into the Slack system and letting that just take its own space. And then when they're ready to write contracts, your agent now can talk to you like an agent and give you agent information so you know where to start. We're not here as the buyer trying to interpret everything. That's really cool. I like this. And you taught me a new one, having the VA set up your showings. I'm adding that to my.
I mean, like literally anything. Like my VAs draft offers. Obviously they don't send the offer. I still get my eyes on it and I send it, but they draft offers, they schedule showings. I sometimes can have them run CMAs depending on the situation. I will typically run CMAs if it's really important and that it's right. But my VAs are really good at it. They know my process. We have an entire checklist for buyers and sellers that whenever we get under contract, they have a checklist. They're going to go through and do all these things. They're going to schedule the inspection. They're going to coordinate contractors to get out to the house if we need to get a bid for repairs. We're able to have a really high level of service because we have a process and I don't have to remember to do anything. It's all in the SOP. It's already there. We've already built it. So you build it once and it works for you forever. That's the cool thing. And if you can open up your mind to really start to let go of some of these tasks and hand it off to someone else, you're never going to want to go back. It's a game changer. And I tell agents, even if you're closing 2 to 3 million a year in sales volume, you need to hire a VA. You need to hire it way sooner than you think.
Yeah, the cost of having one is unbelievably low, and what they can do for you to make you better and more efficient it's unbelievable. I just don't think a lot of people have the vision or the creativity to think past what they're doing themselves. They just don't think that others can do it for them.
They think that they have to do it.
I did HR for 10 years. I was vice president of human resources, and managers had to decide what tasks should they be doing and what tasks should they be assigning out. And one of the core things we learned was you assign tasks, not responsibilities. So, for example, writing contracts, you could give to a VA, but you stop it at writing.
I tell them the offer terms. I tell them
to fill it out and finish sending it.
Option period. I give them the information. They fill it out. They don't make any decisions. I'm making the decisions.
So. Right. It comes straight off of something that you've already set up. So it's a copy and paste. They don't have to create anything. And there's no decision making. We're not giving them decisions.
Yeah. So highly recommend everyone look into it. And, just a quick tip about VAs, check out onlinejobs.ph. It's a Filipino based website where you'll hire someone from the Philippines, and they have a course on there. You can learn everything you need to know about setting up the job posts, how to filter and screen applicants. and just go for it. Like, put in the time to make the job post and go through the hiring process. And once you find someone, you're going to start to exponentially get your time back as you hand off tasks.
Yeah. It's more seamless than most people think. I mean, I've had VAs for, 7, 8 years now. I hire them from companies because I want full support, but eventually most of them offer to work directly with me because I stay pretty loyal and consistent. And then you can hire them directly at 50% what you're paying the company.
Yeah,
That's always been roughly in this case.
That's why I recommend going to online jobs. I don't like doing an agency.
Sure.
I haven't given it much of a chance. The first 2 VAs I hired were through an agency, and I was like, this is terrible. Let me find my own talent through my own process. So either way.
Pros and cons. I don't want to get too much into it, but yes, I think you should hire direct, but you got to really kind of know what you're doing.
Yep.
That helps because anybody can jump in and say, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And then you find out that you're training them on every basic thing and they don't have any support to kind of walk them through that space. We talked about hiring virtual assistants. That was important. We talked about delegating tasks. And then what challenges are you having with the delegation process? What comes back? Where do you have problems?
Well, I was giving them too much to do, actually. So I had one VA for like over a year, and she was like rock star, like awesome talent. And she was just so busy, like basically running the back end of my business. And it took me too long to realize that I need to hire more help. So we hired another one, and we kind of had a revolving door, but we are currently now at a team of 5. So we have 5 VAs that support me. One of them is a cold caller. One of them is like an analyst that looks for deals for our investors. And then we have like 3 more general assistants that have different shifts throughout the week. So I have full coverage 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. If someone wants to schedule a showing or write an offer at 6 p.m. on a Saturday night, no problem. We can get it done. I just got to send a message on Slack and it'll get done. So now that we have 5, and this is pretty new for me, this is only like this month that we've grown it to 5. But yeah, that was a big challenge, only having one VA and taking that step to hire someone.
Well, there's different things. More people. Like you said, cold calling. I mean, that's not what all VAs are going to be good for.
Right.
You got to have specialties in some of that space too to expand.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I only have one. And then I have an assistant and I have a CTC. I've got some other things, but I only have one.
Yeah.
You're way more efficient in a lot of that space than I am. I think that's really clever.
I massively overestimated what one VA can do. I was in coaching with Rob Stein, actually. And I remember one of the first calls, he's like, okay, make a list of everything you want to give to your VA. And like, I gave him my list and he's like, dude, this is like way too much for one person. I'm like, really? Because I do all of that. Like, why can't they? And so, yeah, once you hire them and you realize like, oh, like, yeah, this is way too much. So they can only do so much, so there's a limit to what one person can do.
I think getting a task list that do you have a task list of all the things you assign out?
I could,
or is it kind of like all over the place in all different places of Slack and all that?
Well, we have different SOPs and different like tasks in our task manager that are like templates for like scheduling a showing. That's one of the templates. But I mean, I do have the list somewhere, but not on me right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's something that would be of value. How about time blocking?
Yeah. So, when you have the team in place, time blocking gets a little easier because for me, I like to prospect in the morning. So from like 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., that's my time to like go through my smart lists on Follow Up Boss and make sure they're all cleared and I've touched my hots, my warms, my colds, whatever, right? But when you've got like things flying around in the background, it's not impossible, but it's harder to do when you don't have a team. When you have a team and they're taking care of it for you, you can really lock in and just do your gig. So I really believe in time blocking. I really try to make sure I do prospecting every morning because I know that is what is driving the business forward in terms of like actual production. And then like in the afternoons, I usually time block for working on the business. So the way I do it is like in the mornings, I'll give myself like inbox time or work in the business. Then I got a fat prospecting block, take lunch, and then I'll do like another small block of work in the business. And then I've got a fat work on the business block in the afternoon. And that's when I'm doing things that are moving the business forward. Because prospecting is like finding new business and like generating leads, but working on the business for me, that means like maybe building like a new process for that we're going to delegate, or maybe it's like for right now we're trying to roll out more deal types for our daily deal system that our real estate analyst puts together. So we do like rent by the room right now, but we're trying to roll out midterm rentals, and then we're going to roll out short-term rentals. So that's the afternoon is when I'm doing those things to move things forward for the business. So that's how I use time blocking.
You use the term we. You're referring to you and your VAs, or do you have a partner or other people?
No, just me. I'm solo agent, but I call myself a leveraged solo agent, right? I have a team. So yeah.
Okay. I love it, because that was one of the things you want to talk about, working in versus on. So your morning is, I think about it as you cannot grow a company only on customer service. And what I mean is that if you're not predicting or producing additional opportunities, which is for you, cold clients, things like that, then all you are is just servicing what's in place. But at some point, you're going to run out of things to service.
Yeah, it's a hard skill to learn. You have to learn to not be so reactive in your business. So like if you're prospecting, you got to let stuff go unread for a couple hours, and that's okay. No one's going to die, right? Like that's what you have to tell yourself, because myself included, but I know a lot of agents, we struggle with, oh, we have to serve the client right now, right? We want to have a high level of service. Let me get back to him right now. But you're supposed to be prospecting right now, and you need to do that first. The response can wait until lunch. So like you said, you got to be generating business, not just serving people.
Okay. Do you have, and this will be a fun question for you, what mistake have you made in the business that you've learned from, or maybe it's someone else you would not want them to go through the same thing? You know, you've talked about over leveraging a VA. I mean, you've given some examples of things that you've learned, but can you think of a mistake that you made in the past that would be a good opportunity for another agent to see and learn from?
Well, I would say going in too many different directions. So we only have so much time. And if you're anything like me, you have lots of ideas all the time of things you want to do. So for example, when I first got my VA, I was like, ooh, let's build a system to work with renters, because I get a lot of renter leads. And if I can fully delegate that process, I could still serve renter clients without it costing me any of my time. I spent like a month, like figuring out all the ways it would work. Like, okay, when they message me, this happens. And then like they reply with this, and then they send them this thing. And then we tested it out, and there was like a lot of like areas where like I had to step in. And so we tried to like master that. And then after a while, it's like, dude, like it's been a month. Forget this. Like we need to like focus on like working with buyers and sellers, right? So you can only like master so many areas of your business, and you need to pick the ones that are like the best use of your time, not try and like accomplish everything. I used to be a really big video game guy, and in the Zelda games, I was the guy that did everything. I want all the heart pieces, and I want all the chests and everything. But in business, it's not the same, because you don't have the time for all that. Maybe when your team is good enough and everything's built out, maybe you could do more of that. But when you first start, you got to be really focused on what is the best use of my time right now, and really make sure you choose carefully, because once you start going down that path, you know, you may realize, oh, like I should have been doing this instead.
Yeah, work something to completion.
Yes.
I mean, I can share the same
and finish
thing.
it. Yeah. Yes, finish
you
it.
You got to work something to completion, because you know, I've been there where I've got 10 channels all going simultaneously, and none of them really end up being great. I'm never moving far enough forward with any of them, but get really good at certain space, and then once it's completed, now we can try something else. You know, same thing with the VAs. You can't data dump all of it. You got to get them good at something, and now they've got it. Now we're going to give them something else.
Yes.
Right. You continue to grow that way. I think that's really good advice.
And another one, based on what you just said, another mistake I made, throwing too much at the VA too soon.
Yeah.
Feed them one thing at a time. Let them master and get confident with that task. Build the process. Put it on a shelf. It never goes away. Next task. Don't just be like, here you go. Do all this. It's not going to work.
Yeah, you're both going to get frustrated, because they're going to make mistakes. You're going to get mad, and and they just can't possibly keep up with all of it. You know, what advice would you give an experienced agent looking to break into that top 1%? And that top 1% is usually people that are just selling. I mean, I think 15, 20 houses a year is going to be in your top 1%. You know, do you have advice for people that are only selling, you know, half a house or one house every 2 months? What's that
Oh,
transition
okay.
period?
So advice for agents that want to get to like one deal a month or maybe 1.5 deals a
Yes.
month, and they're only at
Yes.
maybe 4 deals a year or something. Well, like we talked about, open houses would get you there for sure. And just have a really great process for your day. Like I said, prospecting. If you're not prospecting 90 minutes, 2 hours a day, you need to. And if you don't know who to prospect, you can start Googling and look into how you can get more leads. Like you can hire a cold caller. You can go down your sphere of influence, start calling people there, maybe old people that you haven't talked to, some old friends or something. But open houses will keep you busy. Go to networking events, try to meet investors if that's a space you're in. That's what I do. Yeah, I think prospecting is like the main thing. And open house is a form of prospecting, right?
Sure it
So
is.
if
Yes,
you
it
don't
is.
have the business, it means the top of the funnel is not working. You don't have enough leads coming in. So you got to figure out how to get more leads coming in. That's
And
the answer. How
if
you
you
get
don't have
there, I
leads,
don't
if you
know.
don't have leads coming in, you're unemployed.
Yeah. Yeah, you need more lead flow. So go into Chat GPT and see how can I get more lead flow in my real estate business and start there.
You use AI as a big part of your business
Yeah, I use AI all the time for everything.
for
It's like
planning,
a
or
Google on steroids.
yeah, it's like a marketer that will work and give you direction on how to get there, and then you can do it your way. But at least it gives you a place to start, and it
Yeah.
gets to know you. Like it knows where you're good and where you're terrible, and it
Yep.
starts giving you advice to stay in your lane and still be effective to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. How do we find you, Matt? What's your best social media handle for people to connect with you?
It's my name, Matt X Solis. So it's Matt Solis with the X in between. Matt X Solis.
And that's your Instagram.
Solis.
Okay.
That's my Instagram.
Instagram.
That's my Facebook. That's everything.
And then you mentioned a product that you wanted to promote called Daily Deals. What is that?
Yeah, well, this is meant more for investors. So I know you mentioned mostly agents listen to this. It's not as useful for an agent, but if any investors are listening to this, I do have a system called the Daily Deals. And one of our VAs, he's a full-time real estate analyst, and he finds us deals on and off market based on criteria that I have educated him on. We put together reports and they come across my desk. I approve them and they go out to our daily deal newsletter people. So right now we do a ton of rent by the room, which we didn't really get into, but yeah, rent by the room, co-living. And then eventually we're going to be sending out midterm rentals, short-term rentals, deals that are penciling in on paper first so that we put the deals in front of you so you don't have to go looking for them and try to crunch your own numbers. We do it all for you. So it's put right in front of you, and then you can let us know if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah. And they're not flips for long term. They're really more for the niche.
We are going to be doing long-term and flips as well. We're going to do it all. But the thing with long-term is, like, from what I'm finding, it's, unless you're going to put 50% down, you're not going to really see much cash flow. Most people who are doing long-term, they understand that, but we will be doing some long-term as well, depending on, the area and how we feel about the long-term appreciation. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt, for jumping in and doing a podcast with me. I appreciate you. You've got a lot of really good things. You've got some niche space that's well beyond where I'm at. I love some of the things that you have. I'm going to be following up offline with some of this, but I appreciate you jumping in this week, and we will have a new episode every week here going forward. I think we're at 12 or 13 posted. So we're about a month out before we get to see Matt posted. So we're kind of talking and from behind, but man, I've got super excited about what we covered. Anyway, this is your latest episode of Real Estate Success DFW with Shaune Corbett. If you're looking for Matt, he gave you content on how to find him, and all you out there have a high performance week. Thank you.
Thanks, Shaune.
That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.